Hey everybody, thanks for joining the Gym Life Podcast today for a special interview. And this is a collaborated interview. Of course, you see Pam Grishock to the left of Miss Olympia here, Andrea Shaw, and myself, Joe, from the Gym Life Podcast. We have the special privilege today of talking to, well, the greatest in bodybuilding right now, right? 2 years in a row. Yes, congratulations. And hopefully 3 this December, right?
God willing. God willing. 3.
Well, you know, first thing I like to do always on all of our shows is to talk about backstory a little bit. Because backstory is pretty important, right?
Indeed.
Where'd you come from?
Indeed. Detroit.
Well, of course,
Michigan.
Detroit. Michigan, yes. Yeah, and there's a long history of what you do in Michigan, which is great. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But how did you kind of get started in all the bodybuilding stuff?
So when I was 13, I had come back from Kansas. I lived with my dad for a while. My mom wanted to go back to school, and it was kind of one of those situations where it was like, where do I send you? Where do I, because she needed that time. She was still working, but to take on the educational workload, she needed to have my dad take care of me for a while. And so when I got back to Michigan, my mom had this full-blown life. She was in the gym. I mean, she's a nurse by profession, but she was training clients. And she took me to the powerhouse, and she's like, all right, this is what we do. So when you get out of school and I get off work, I go to the gym, train clients, and you hang out with me until it's time to go home. So whether that's you doing homework or you want to work out, this is what we do. And sure enough, she took me in. I met her clients, and over time, I just, was tinkering around in the gym, and certain things just came really easy. And I'm like, man, this is really cool. I'm like, okay, figured out this machine, that machine, talking to different people in the gym. Because, being a young person, you get the older person and they're like, they want to kind of take you under the wing a little bit. And they start, just talking to me. Oh yeah, and so-and-so's getting ready for a show, and this person's getting ready for a show. And it's like, oh, okay. So then I saw this huge mural of Linda Murray on the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I had this moment, I will never forget it.
Was this Powerhouse on Woodward?
And no, this one's actually Powerhouse Centerline, so Van Dyke.
Okay.
Yeah, one of Linda's hideaways, she told me. She was one of her little hideaway gyms, like a little prep secret gym.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I said, what, I wonder what it would be like to get into the best shape of my life.
At 13.
I wonder what that would feel like.
At 13,
Awesome.
yeah.
And that's kind of where the inspiration started.
It's kind of this is how prodigies are made, right? When you start that young. We hear about people starting that young in like tennis or golf, right? More recently, Serena Williams and Tiger Woods. And
also from Michigan.
Also from Michigan, that's right, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to me because, you think about bodybuilding as a path, right? Especially women's bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I mean, for 6 years, we didn't have it recently.
That's right.
So you kind of coming back or making your appearance in 2020 kind of is leading the way in this new generation of women's bodybuilding, which is a little bit different.
So exciting.
Yeah,
So exciting.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel very, very, very good.
Yeah.
It's almost like the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because, there aren't many people who can say that, their sport went away, and then they were the ones to come back and, bring it back to life. And that's what it feels like. It feels like this is just a new life with female bodybuilding, and there's so much excitement, and there's so many people who are now more genuinely interested in it, with it being back. And I mean, these girls are coming out of the woodworks.
Yeah.
A lot of women's physique girls who are like, okay, you know what, I'm not placing well. What do you think about me coming over to women's bodybuilding? Come on.
Yeah.
We got plenty of room. And just having these conversations, again, it gives us so much life, so much energy, and so much motivation to keep doing what we're doing because it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of pondered on that a little bit, on the way down, talking to you about that because it is kind of unique, right? Because you think about women's bodybuilding and why it went away.
Yeah.
But you're seeing it come back, and you're kind of represented on a different level too.
Indeed.
I mean, I know you're humble and you don't like talking about yourself, so I'll do that for you. But you've captured this real feminine muscle, and I think that's really what the sport needed. That Linda Murray, that Corey Everson. Obviously we're going back a ways.
Yeah.
But there's that femininity that was maybe lost, or at least they thought it was lost in the sport.
Exactly.
And do you feel that a little bit as well?
I do, and I feel like when I've studied the history, obviously at this point now we've been looking at a lot more muscle, and that was one thing that I brought to my coach's attention. It was like, you know what? Okay, I'm definitely more of a girly girl, and if I had to lose that part of me, then I was willing to forego bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because again, I had done figure, I had done women's physique. And I still felt like, to my core, I still like to make sure I'm kind of ultra feminine on stage sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like my performance thing. And that was something that, I'll be quite candid, kind of steered me away from bodybuilding to begin with. It was like one of those things where I looked and I was like, I didn't relate. I couldn't quite feel that feminine energy come through.
You couldn't connect with that.
And that's where, I kind of was like, no, John, I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
even though I had really dense muscle, even as a figure competitor, But again, sometimes you have to become the change you want to see. And that era of, Linda's competing and Corey, and I'm like, you know what, I can still honor them by bringing my way of doing it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, I felt really motivated. And Linda, after I made my pro debut, her coming up to me and telling me that I needed to make the switch kind of solidified me, like, okay, now is the time. And once they made the announcement about the Miss Olympia coming back, I said, all right, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I'm going to find a way to make it work.
Yeah. And you are so feminine on stage, and I love it. Yeah. And we were just talking on the way down here, like how beautiful you are to bring that up,
Because it's a lot of muscle.
Stage.
It's a lot of muscle.
And you carry it so well.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're a girly girl, and that shines through. Yeah. And it's so cool to see.
Yeah. And again, those extra little details, right? My coaching coach, shout out to Sid Gillen. She does bodybuilding, but that's what she grew up with. So it was very easy for us to work together and really hone in on those pieces of my personality that I get to shine, and bring forth on the stage. I mean, it's been an amazing journey. Amazing.
It just worked out perfectly. I think, kind of your place in the history of the sport now, in that little bit of a break, and then it was necessary, I think, for just a new life for women's bodybuilding. And it's so cool to see you being a part. And listen, we take special pride in it, of course, because you're a Michigan gal. But it's a super awesome history we have here in the state, obviously, particularly with the Miss Olympia.
Yes.
I mean, right now, between you and Linda Murray, we got 10. And Iris Kyle, I think, has got 10.
10.
Okay.
Yep.
God bless her. That's a lot.
You got it. You got
How
it.
many more you got left in the tank, right?
Ooh,
Do you ever think about that, the longevity of what you're doing? I mean, I know it's every great athlete's like, I'll know that time when it comes.
Yeah.
But do you kind of have those moments where you say, well, I got 3, 5, 6, I got years competing. I know to keep the humble nature of it, you still have to win.
Yeah.
But do you think about that kind of thing?
I do, and I think about it a lot. And I always tell people, my goal is 11.
Yeah.
My goal is 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, I mean, you have to kind of think about other things that can be considered the variables, right? I still need to make sure that I have a good headspace about competing, right? So that's why I tell people I want to achieve that goal, but as long as I still feel good about being in it. And if there ever comes a point where I don't really feel good about being in it, then I know that that's my transition point to find somewhere else.
Yeah,
whether it's
great,
judging, promoting, doing something else involved with the sport. But again, the mindset piece is a huge component, right? Because you're going into a prep for 15 weeks, 14 weeks, however long you take. You still need to be in a good mental space about it because it's a commitment. And I take commitments very, very seriously. So that's where, again, as long as I stay in a good mental space and a good physical space with it, then that's going to be my goal, to go after 11. But again, to see there are so many other avenues to go into, still being connected with the sport and not competing is something that, again, I would say probably at least several times a year, I've had the thoughts about, what about this?
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's there.
Yeah, because it's in your core, so you're going to do something with it.
Exactly.
Forever.
Yeah, and I've been around bodybuilding since 13.
Your whole life.
If you think about, I mean, right? So now it's like, okay, who else can I encourage? Who else can I motivate? Who else can I kind of mentor along the way that, I can be that for someone that I didn't get.
Yeah, you're kind of doing that right in the middle of it all, because you're still focusing on being the top level athlete in what you're doing.
Right.
So you're juggling a lot of roles at an early age in the sport simply because you've been around it so long.
Yeah.
But we talked a little bit before we started recording, and it's about legacy a little bit too. We mentioned Jay Cutler and Dave Palumbo and guys, and of course we're missing 100 other people out there that are really recognizable in the sport still, that manage to find that path that they're looking for outside the sport. And you kind of just hit on that a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, you have to be comfortable. I think athletes need to be, you have your time to compete. But then it's like, what does your life look like after you're done competing? When you're done competing, if you really love the sport, you've been making these connections. You've been talking to people at the shows. You've been talking with competitors. You've been talking with judges, asking about, new trends with, things in other places around the world that potentially could, wellness, for example, was not something that was a part of U.S. market when it comes to IFBB and NPC. It's now here.
Yep.
So again, talking to people about, what other things are kind of on the horizon, because the NPC and the IFBB has evolved over time. When I first started, there was no women's physique. There was no wellness. There was literally only figure, women's bodybuilding, and then fitness. And that was it. And right, Pam, remember when we used to wear the one piece?
Yeah.
That was classic.
The one piece.
I mean, how did you do, right? Especially if you were like holding any water, that one piece was golden. But again, I think that you have to really consider, when you look back in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what does your time in the sport, what does that reflect about you and what it is about your message that you were passionate? How passionate were you really? And we'll know that by the things that you did, the lives that you impacted. That definitely
and the bridges you built.
Yeah, exactly. Not burned.
Not burned. Not in this industry.
Too small. Too small. We're far-reaching, but again, we're still a very small community because our sport is it's a niche, right? It's a certain niche, and it's not very mainstream yet. But again, it's something that when you really have a heart for it, you find a way to build in those long-lasting relationships and that legacy that says, you know what, we knew about Lee Haney. We knew that, in his era or during Yates, we knew that they were on this path. We knew about Linda. She had this desire. We knew about, Corey. They had that, and they're still connected to the sport. Right? And those are the people that, again, when you look back, they're pretty satisfied in talking with them about the commitment and the contributions that they've made to the sport. Yeah, that's a lasting legacy, a successful one.
It sounds like you've got some ideas on where things are going.
I do. A few things I'm kind of, penciling down and talking over with the who's who.
That's awesome. And when I saw you guest pose, I talked a little bit before this interview. You really make this not about you. Like, you have one time you make it about you, and it's the day of your show, and that is it. And you were guest posing, and that came out a little bit, but you were still there for everybody else, and to kind of showcase the competitors. But she got on the stage. She was supposed to talk about herself, and she literally said like 2 words about herself. They kept encouraging her to talk about herself, but she wanted everybody to know how important bodybuilding was to you and how everybody can use bodybuilding to help their whole life. And like you said, was the commitment and the structure and all of those things that help. So you are so humble up there, and she literally wants to help everybody else.
I mean, again, I think about what it did for me as a young woman. That confidence that I needed to, because I think that when you're 13, 14, 15, even in like maybe the later years in high school, you're finding yourself. You kind of know yourself, but you really don't know yourself, right? And to find that confidence in myself and being able to say, if I can do these 12 reps, I can do this, or I can do that. These are things that were going on outside of the gym. Specifically, like with my academics, right? So again, if I'm disciplined about making sure my meals are cooked, if I'm disciplined about making sure that I'm checking off those days and I'm at the gym and I know I'm supposed to be at the gym and I'm getting it done, I started to notice that, that boosted my confidence. Okay, you know what? And I walk a little taller when I walk into the classroom. I'm able to answer those questions and look my, professor in the eye and say with conviction, I know the answer. Those things started to really develop within me, and I said, if this worked like this for me, then certainly there's somebody else that, along the journey, I'm going to be able to help and minister to and say, hey, you know what? This is, you can totally do this. There's nothing that you can't do. And I still live by that. There's nothing that you can't do.
But see, that's your heart for everybody else. Even that whole thing just came out.
And it's kind of selfish because I do this with my clients. It's like I assess them and I see kind of where they can be and where we can go. And they have one thing in mind, but I always try to level it up and say, you know what, we can do this. And you really think I can do it? Absolutely. There's nothing that you can't do. And I know that I can take you to this place if you're along for the journey, if you're committed to the ride.
It's a humbling experience to walk into an Anytime Fitness and have Miss Olympia be working out there.
He said, I just can't believe Miss Olympia works out here.
I was raised on a farm, so when it comes to like the humbleness, it's my
perfect example of your personality. It certainly is, and how humble you are. Because obviously, as we get bigger and better in this sport and these athletics, we want to work out at those high-profile type places. You're hidden over here in the corner. Could you imagine being somebody off the street walking in here and going, "You guys got any personal trainers here?" Yeah, we got one over here.
Yeah, we got one.
She's pretty
happens
good.
to be.
She's actually on the website without a picture, by the way, on the website for this gym. The picture's not even up there.
Oh, really?
But again, you know what? When I started with John, I told him, I said, you know what, and I talked to you about this before we got started recording.
Yeah.
I don't care how notable and how, high ranking I get, I don't ever want to lose that ability to be able to connect with people.
Right.
From a genuine place.
Right.
Oh, and
Right?
you could feel
like,
it.
like absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's where, if there's something that, and this is one thing you'll notice about me, if there's something that's kind of off about a person when I meet them, I'll just be quiet.
Yeah.
I'll just be quiet and I won't engage much. But, and because again, you know it when you hear it and when you see it. But yeah, the people who can be genuine, those are the people that you want to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
The people who are not afraid to tell you the truth when you really don't want to hear the truth, those are the people you want to be around.
Yeah.
And again, those are the people that along my journey helped me to really grow, right? And so again, I want to be hopefully that much more of an influence, because now we've got social media, you've got people who are maybe a little bit shy to ask questions in person. They'll send you a DM. All right, cool. Yeah, no problem. That's why I tell people, if you got a question, just shoot the DM.
It's so awesome you're that accessible, and I think there are a lot of really good examples of that in the sport. We're fortunate in our gym world, to be able to have so many people that are accessible now through social media.
Yeah.
And there's a double-edged sword, of course.
Yeah, if
There's
they're
some
willing
good,
to,
of course.
Because a lot of people don't talk about, some of the dark side of, having to deal with some people. You got some people who are not in it for the right reasons, and they try to manipulate to get certain things. But again, if you're wise, you can sift through that.
Sift through it.
And you can again see the people who really genuinely are asking for help.
Yeah.
And if you can help them, help them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
You can change their life.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your prep now, right? Because I know we're into a summer. You're kind of in the off season, I guess. So, sort of. Is there really an off season for Miss Olympia, though?
Not really.
Not
really.
I don't think there's cheesecake waiting for you at home right now. So
I can smell it.
yeah, I bet you can.
At the Costco, right? When they go to get the samples, like, I don't need any. I just want to
They
get
just smell it. They're like,
Get a
okay.
whiff.
Yeah. So you got? You've got a lot going on before then, no doubt. You probably got some traveling coming up as well.
You got it.
I mean, when do you really buckle down? I mean, what does a normal year look like for you leading up to the Olympia? When do you really get into that place to go, okay, I'm shutting everything else off now, I got to get down to business? When does that happen?
That usually happens for me about 3 to 4 months before stage time.
Okay.
So this year, since the Olympia got moved to December,
right.
I'm also doing the Rising Phoenix, which is in November.
And you're a 2-time champion of that show.
I am.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah.
I'm like, it's really real.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years, and I'm still like, you guys don't understand. Like when you get into that such extreme focus, it's you literally go in with the blinders on almost, and it's like you've got this one goal and you go after it and you give everything you've got, and then you look up and it's like, oh,
there it is.
Okay, well, and then by the time you really start to let it sink in, it's time to get back in the zone, right? So it's still kind of catching up a little bit to me that yes, this has really happened. But
I want to make a point about the Rising Phoenix show, because you do something very unique that I don't think a lot of people understand and take for granted. As an Olympic champion, right, the top of the food chain, it's not too often you'll see that Olympic person, right, or the Olympian put themselves out on the line like that in a competition prior to the Olympia.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're expected to win that show.
Absolutely. No
That's
pressure.
a lot of pressure.
No pressure.
Ronnie didn't compete in a lot of shows outside the Olympia. When Jay was winning, he competed in the Olympia.
Yeah.
So you really kind of are doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think more athletes should do that.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And again, what's your commitment level to the sport? The Rising Phoenix was, in essence, our Olympia when it was taken away.
True.
So again, what better way for me to, show my honor, pay homage, right, to the ladies who have kept it going and competed, pretty much since
Love
the
that.
Miss Olympia was taken away. It is our Olympia. And now I guess could be considered our Arnold.
Yeah.
Because it's by invitation only. But again, it's just as prestigious as the Olympia, in my opinion. My mom says she thinks it's more prestigious.
With you being there, Andrea, it was just a lot of people want to knock you down.
Well, and I go into it knowing that I don't sleep on anybody. I don't sleep on anybody. But again, my goal is always to maybe watching and observing the other competitors throughout the year. But I try to bring my focus back to what is Andrea going to do to make sure she's better than she was last year.
That's right.
And that's where my pressure applied, self-applied, comes in. Because as long I'm confident, as long as I know that I'm doing everything that I need to do, checking all the boxes to make sure I'm better than I was last year, then I'm going in with all confidence, no matter what the results are, right? Of course, everybody wants to win. We all want to win.
Sure.
But again, I'm not the claws out, I'm coming to tear you down kind of girl. No. I'm coming to build others up and build myself up.
Yeah.
So I think that the mindset in which you go into a prep and a show with still also says a whole lot about how you're going to come out once the show is done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
totally. But yeah, so this year's buckle down time is we're looking at like August.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I got a little time. So shortly after the Tampa Pro, because I'm going to be working the Tampa Pro
Okay.
with the Wings of Strength. So come by and see me if you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing last year. Even though last year it was a little bit tighter because I was in prep at the Tampa Pro, but I literally we got off the plane at Tampa Pro, and I had 30 days to get ready for the Rising Phoenix because it was in September. So it was like, okay, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little more time this time. So yeah, I told him, you know, right after Tampa Pro, because I will hopefully go out for my last like apple pie and
Absolutely.
really big steak,
Sure,
big steak.
Yeah, what's your favorite thing?
Oh, apple pie.
Is it apple
Oh
pie?
gosh, yes. And I mean, it's Sam's Club size. Like I
Okay.
get the Sam's Club size. Oh yeah. And I'm not sharing. I mean, it's
Get your own.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh
awesome.
yeah. It's the biggest pie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like this thick. It's
I've
like a
seen
deep
it.
dish.
I've seen it.
I
yeah.
can eat the whole, no joke. I can
Yeah.
eat the whole pie by myself.
Just that, nothing else with it?
I
Just
just
No ice cream, no alamone for you.
awesome.
fork is the only thing that's required.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Oh yeah, that's definitely my favorite. And I mean, we happened upon that crazy, really funny story, kind of cute story. So John had a show back when I was still an amateur. So I did John's show back in 2016. Came in fourth as a women's physique competitor. Excellent experience. That's when I started to really learn my body a little bit more. I had to really work on dialing my legs in. So fast forward 2018, I'm on the pursuit to get the pro card. And I do the show, and I win. But John is telling me, I want you to eat. I want you to eat apple pie, eat. He's basically telling me I need the carb load. And I'm like, I'm scared. I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to, come be sloppy and spill over. Like, I worked so hard for this. I got to win your show. Like, I came in fourth last time I did the show. I got to win.
Right.
And he's like, okay, I'm not going to force you. But, I'm telling you, if you want it, have it.
That's a good drink.
After the show, it was probably about maybe 1 o'clock, maybe in the morning. And I go out to the car, because after a show, you're tired, right?
Sure.
I left my apple pie in the car in a container. I said, ooh, I got the apple pie in the
1
car.
o'clock, yeah.
I'm going out there, it's raining outside. So I'm on a mission, I'm going to get this apple pie. So I come back in, I eat the apple pie, go to sleep. I wake up the next morning, I'm like, John, oh my gosh. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I look amazing.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I tried to tell you. And I knew then, I said, anything you tell me to eat from now on, I'm eating it.
Keyword, anything he's telling you to eat, right?
True.
Yeah,
True.
don't get caught up on apple pie out there.
You
That is
got
not the
it.
secret
You
to
got
the
it.
Olympia.
That is not
Yeah.
exactly, because again,
Yeah.
before that, we were doing something totally different. So again, we happened to kind of stumble upon this, which was, it's fun.
They're
It's
going to
cool
cherry pick that
backstory.
information and be like, well, Miss Olympia said eat apple pie, so...
Yeah.
I would say if you want to try it, do a test run with you and your coach.
Yeah.
I like to do the dry run. Even
Right.
with my athletes that I coach, just do a dry one and then see if it works for you.
I'm
Okay.
picturing Arnold like in Pumping Iron when he tells people to eat a teaspoon of salt.
Yeah.
Apple pie.
That's right. At Sam's Club, not just any apple
Yeah,
pie.
that's right.
It's got to be
Bigger
the
the better.
That's
Bigger the
right.
better. And we're talking about John Simmons, right?
Correct.
Be clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Of course we are. I just want to make sure.
Our
sure
own
he gets
living
his
legend.
Yes.
Our own living
Yes.
legend for
Our
the
own
mission,
living
for sure.
legend.
Which,
And
by
he
the way,
run-
got to get John on sometime soon. I think,
Yeah,
too, as well.
yeah.
A lot of history to talk about there.
He's got a lot of wealth and information with the
Oh,
history
yeah.
because him and Linda, a lot of people don't know this, they used to be workout partners back in the day.
Oh,
So yeah, it's very cool to see like, okay, if you want to get like a really good workout partner, if they're willing to show you and have you kind of jump in with them, get with somebody who's getting ready for a show.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time, they were both getting ready for a show.
Awesome.
So they were like, they've been in the trenches together when it comes to being in prep. So it's really cool
I'd
to
love
kind
to see that.
of just sit and chat with them about what it was like being at Powerhouse and, how things have kind of evolved.
You know Ron Love, of course, right? You talked to Ron a lot. When's the last time you talked to Ron?
I saw Ron about a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still
always
at
one of my
Powerhouse.
favorites.
Yeah,
Always
I
one
mean,
of my
again,
favorites.
another one of our
Grew
living
up with that.
legends.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, and saw a lot of the history because that Powerhouse has now churned out 2 Miss Olympias, and then the state of Michigan has churned out a total of 4, with Miss Figure Olympia being Nicole Wilkins.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's pretty special.
it's really
That's
good.
really
Michigan
special.
is a very special place.
It's fun to be a part of this state for sure.
Yeah.
When I fired the podcast up, it was really easy, I'll tell you. It's a lot of
We
great.
aren't called the mitten for no reason.
Well,
We pack a punch.
That we got the
pack
punch.
a good
I like
punch.
that.
In all of our lifting sports, we really do.
We do.
We're pretty fortunate.
We do.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with the Gym Life podcast and Living Fit with Pam Grishock. A little collaboration here today. Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I love my Michigan folks.
Yes.
Love it. And I've
Yes.
been watching her since I was really, really baby amateur. We're talking like 2008.
That was a humble
So I
experience.
was like really watching her, and I'm like seeing her, and she's so pretty, and I'm like, wow, this is a girl. Whoever she's working with, that's who I want to work with.
I actually asked her to be on here. I have to tell you guys this. And I'm like, oh, I just messaged her. She won't really remember who I am. And she's like, for you, anything. I was like, for me. And then she said, I have your picture. I was like, you do? I like almost cried. It was
Pam
so
was
awesome.
inside of the Oxygen magazine in the back, and she was featured. She was like the first one in all the spots. There were like 10 girls in the spots.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I'm like, Barry, you know she's in the magazine? And I'm like, you know, again.
There's a reason I brought Pam on with me. I'm telling you,
Exactly.
greasing the wheel for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, think about the culture that we create
Yeah.
when we inspire other people just by
That's
getting
a great
into something
example.
that really starts out as helping ourselves.
Which you might take for granted, right? And then all of a sudden you find out Miss Olympia stared at your picture.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
now we're friends.
That's
So
right.
cool.
That's right. And if she
Yeah.
asks me to do another podcast tomorrow, I
Well, we will.
say
Right
yes.
after that third of Miss Olympia.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, John,
Consider
come
it
on.
done.
John's coming
Consider
with
it
you, right?
done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You got it on camera.
I do.
Consider it
Yeah.
done.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right.